Have you ever caught yourself freezing for a second because of something your child did? Why won't they lend their toy? Why are they so terrified of making a mistake? Why do they always want to sit on your lap? Why do they suddenly insist on only mom or only dad? On the surface, these moments can look small, inconvenient, even a little unreasonable. But underneath them, children are often saying something important without having the words to say it. What looks like stubbornness, clinginess, or overreaction is very often a feeling in disguise. And when you start seeing the feeling behind the behavior, the way you respond begins to change. Let's look at 5 common behaviors that often carry a much deeper message from a child's heart. The first one is when they refuse to share their toys. When a child says, "No, this is mine," it can be tempting to treat it as selfishness. But for young children, especially around the toddler and preschool years, that reaction is often much more than simple possessiveness. At that age, mine is not just about the object. It is part of how they begin to understand themselves. Their favorite toy is not only a toy. It can feel like a safe extension of who they are. Something familiar. Something comforting. Something that belongs to their little world. So when someone asks to borrow it, what they may be feeling is not greed but fear. Fear of losing it. Fear of not having control. Fear of something precious being taken away. That is why forcing a child to share in that moment does not always teach kindness. Sometimes it teaches them that their feelings do not matter. But when you say, "You don't feel ready to share that right now, do you?" something softens inside them. They feel understood. And that sense of safety matters. Children learn to respect other people's belongings more easily when their own sense of ownership has been respected too. Being allowed to protect what feels important to them can become the foundation for generosity later on. In other words, the child who cannot share today is not necessarily becoming selfish. They may simply be in the middle of learning where they end and where the rest of the world begins. The second behavior is being extremely afraid of failure. Some children panic before they even begin. They say, "I can't do it," or "I'm scared," before they have really tried. And yes, sometimes they are afraid of making a mistake. But very often, what scares them most is not the failure itself. It is what they think failure means. To a child, one bad result can feel much bigger than it does to an adult. It can feel like proof that they are disappointing. Proof that they are not good enough. Proof that they might lose approval, praise, or love. That is why some children do not experience failure as, "I made a mistake." They experience it as, "Maybe I'm not the kind of child people are proud of." And when a child starts linking performance with worth, even small challenges can feel emotionally dangerous. This is why the words we use matter so much. Instead of only praising outcomes, it helps to notice the process. "You really stuck with that. You were nervous but you still tried. I'm proud of the way you kept going." Those kinds of words give children something far more stable than praise for success. They give them permission to exist without being perfect. A child who knows deep down, "Even if I fail, I am still safe here," becomes much more willing to try again. And that courage does not grow from pressure. It grows from being received with warmth, even in disappointment. Sometimes the strongest support we can give a child is helping them see that failure is an experience, not an identity. The third behavior is when they just do not stop talking. Some children come home and pour out words like a waterfall. One story becomes another, then something that barely seems connected at all. And after a long day, adults can feel tired just listening. But that nonstop talking is not always random noise. Very often, a child is talking so much because they are trying to sort through their own inner world. Children do not always understand their feelings clearly enough to explain them neatly. So they talk and talk, circling around what happened, repeating details, jumping from one thing to another, because they are still figuring out what it all meant to them. Inside a story about recess, there may be loneliness. Inside a long explanation about a game, there may be hurt. Inside a strange, tangled conversation, there may be a quiet need to feel close to you. Sometimes children speak the most to the people who feel safest. Not because they are trying to overwhelm you, but because your presence gives them room to unfold. That is why a simple "really?" or "and then what happened?" can mean so much. You do not have to analyze every sentence. You do not have to fix every emotion. Often, what they need most is not a solution. It is space. Even when the story seems messy or hard to follow, there is often something real underneath it. And when you listen without rushing them, you are doing more than hearing words. You are telling them, your inner world is welcome here. The fourth behavior is wanting to sit on your lap all the time. To adults, it can look like babyish behavior, something they should be growing out of. But to a child, your lap can be one of the safest places in the world. It is not just affection. It is regulation. It is not just clinginess. It is recovery. After spending hours in school, daycare, or the outside world trying to cope, behave, perform, and adapt, many children come back needing something deeply familiar. Your lap becomes that place. A place where they do not have to explain themselves. A place where their body can finally relax. Children often return to physical closeness when they are tired, overstimulated, uncertain, or simply in need of reassurance. And that need is not a sign that something is wrong. It is often a sign that they trust you enough to let themselves soften. The warmth of being held, the rhythm of being near you, the feeling of being protected without words. Those experiences build emotional security in ways children may remember for life, even if they never consciously put it into words. And the beautiful part is this. Children who are allowed to feel safe do not become less independent. In many cases, they become more able to step out into the world with confidence. Security is not the opposite of independence. It is what makes independence possible. So if your child still climbs into your lap, maybe that is not something to rush away. Maybe it is one of those small seasons that feels ordinary now, but one day you will realize it was precious. And the fifth behavior is when they strongly prefer one parent over the other. Only mom. No, I want dad. Not you. Those words can sting, especially for the parent who feels pushed away. But in many cases, this is not really about rejection. It is about regulation. Children are sensitive to change. A new sibling, a move, a different routine, a parent being busy, tension in the house, a new school year. Things that adults might consider manageable can feel huge to a child. And when their inner world feels shaky, they often reach for the person who feels most stabilizing in that moment. That does not mean they love the other parent less. It does not mean one parent has failed. It usually means, right now, this is the person who helps me feel safest. Children do this because they are trying to restore emotional balance. It is their way of holding on to something steady, while everything else feels uncertain. When we take that preference personally, we can end up adding more tension to a moment that is really about comfort. But when we understand it for what it is, we respond differently. The chosen parent can offer calm presence. The other parent can stay emotionally available without forcing closeness. And over time, when children feel that their need for safety is understood rather than judged, they often return naturally to a more balanced connection with both parents. Sometimes a child's strongest preference is not a statement about love. It is a signal about what their heart needs right now. So if any of these behaviors have been frustrating, confusing, or even hurtful, maybe this is your reminder to look one layer deeper. A child's behavior is not always a problem to solve. Sometimes it is a message to hear. Behind the refusal to share may be a need for security. Behind the fear of failure may be a fear of losing worth. Behind the endless talking may be a heart trying to make sense of itself. Behind the need to sit on your lap may be a nervous system asking for rest. Behind the preference for one parent may be a quiet search for stability. And when we respond to the feeling instead of just the behavior, something changes not only in the child but in us. If this made you think of your own child, or reminded you of a moment you did not fully understand until now, I hope you carry that insight with you the next time one of these little behaviors appears. Sometimes the smallest moments are the ones that hold the deepest truths. And if one of these felt especially familiar, I'd love to hear which one stayed with you most.